How's everybody doing today? Happy Sunday, if it's Sunday where you're at. For me, it's the morning. Could be the evening for you. We went live last Sunday. I tend to do video editing live streams every Sunday. And we went live last Sunday. And one of the things I started talking about at the end of the stream was keyframing, which is one of those things that I sort of don't even think about. I just use it. I love using keyframing. But I got a lot of questions, and a lot of people afterwards were saying like that was really helpful, and they had other questions, and I didn't realize how much some people struggle with keyframing. Excuse me, I'm still getting over this cold. So I wanted to specifically talk about keyframing today. I'd like to welcome Miroslav to the Battalion memberships group. Hey man, go to the memberships tab on my YouTube channel, and you'll see a drop-down menu of all the things that are now available to you with members-only content. There's also a members-only Facebook group you definitely want to join. Make sure you go there, drop your channel link when you ask for admission. Great to have you on board. But yeah, so good to see a lot of you out there. Success is the goal. Doug Hewson, as always, my friend Doug Hewson. Tinkerman Mick, my girl Megan's out there. I saw Iggy, this bite's for you. He's out there. I think he's getting breakfast. He's getting breakfast. And we need breakfast. You got to start your day off right. Let's see. Good morning, Daniel. I hope everyone, hope all is well. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Nice to see you, Hannity. Yeah. So keyframing, I think, is one of those things that can be confusing. And I never even think about it being confusing because I'm used to using it in so many different video editing softwares that I just use it, and I probably don't talk about it enough. So when I started talking about it and everybody had a lot of questions, I went, oh man, I got to come back and I gotta talk about this some more. So if you have questions along the way here today, feel free to drop them in the chat regarding keyframing. I'm going to try to stay on topic today. Love you from India. Right back at you, Ankit. Love back at you, pal. So I wanna try to simplify keyframing. Let me ask the chat right off the bat. How many of you in the chat, give me a yes or a no, have trouble with keyframing or find it to be difficult to understand, or you stumble with it, or maybe you know parts of it but don't get all of it? If you think it's difficult and it's one of those things that you wish you had a better handle on, say yes, I wish I knew more about it. But if you got it all set and you're like, nah, keyframing, I got it. No, give me a yes or a no in the chat. I just want to get a feeling for where you guys are at. Yeah, I got a yes. Yes. Abdullah says yes. Nero says yes. RV Hobo says yes, great name. Iggy says kinda. Kinda. You know, sometimes, every now and then. No, see? FNLP's like, nope, I got it. No problem. I know it all. Cooking the weeds, yes. See, that's what I felt. Reverse. Let me see. We got a whole bunch of yeses in here. I felt the same way. I felt like it can be confusing. I want to simplify it for you. In general, when we're doing this, and I'm going to be using Filmora 11 today, but it doesn't matter what video editing software you use. Movavi, I was using it, had keyframing before Filmora ever offered it. That was one of the reasons I liked using Movavi. But pretty much the rules are the same. If you learn how keyframing works in one video editing software, then you'll pretty much know how to use it in other ones. It's just a matter of finding where that feature is and where you apply it and things like that. Not a big deal. But you want to understand the logistics of it. Right? If you get the basics down, then it doesn't matter what software you end up using, whether that's DaVinci or Adobe Premiere Pro or pick your poison. You'll be able to use keyframing and go, I understand how it works. So I don't have to, it's just figuring out where they have it in that particular software. So the way that keyframing works is basically just independent points that you can put into your timeline where you're setting instructions. And the way I like to think of it is like, you guys all use navigation, like on your phone when you're driving. If your phone says, go to the end of the street and then turn right? And then you turn right, drive for 2 miles, then you come to a stop sign and turn left, right? All those points, right? Go to the end of the street. Think of that as a keyframe. Boom, that's a piece of information. Go there. Okay, now what do? I turn right. Okay, I turned right. And then it tells you to just keep going until you get to the next stop sign, and then you're going to turn left. And like your navigation fills in the blank between that turn and the next turn, and you always see that line where it's walking you through the road, right? It's following you down that road. Keyframing is a lot like that. You're setting markers in the timeline of information points, and then your software fills in the blanks in between. So understanding that that's what it is, it's just information points. Each keyframe is a block of information that you control. You control all of the information in that moment. Let me pull up Filmora and I can show you what I'm talking about. Let me go, let me find a piece of whatever. Let me find a piece of footage here. I'm sure I have something somewhere. It can be anything. You know what? And this is another thing I should talk about. It doesn't have to be video footage. It can be, it can be an image. It can be anything. Pardon my cough. It can really be anything that you're using. But typically in Filmora, you have separate controls to keyframe the audio. I've made a video on that. But when it comes to like the video clips, you're really going to be looking at, let me just grab any video here. Here's a bounce. Let's say I have this piece of footage. Let me just quickly pull this up. And I want to do something with this footage, all right? It's just right now, this footage is just full screen, right? I brought this piece of footage down into my timeline. It's full screen. There are no keyframes on it whatsoever, right? So no matter where I scroll, if I take the playhead, let me go full screen here so you can see it a little bit better. No matter where I go with this playhead, right? It's just me waving my arms frantically. That's kind of funny. Well, there's my scrub. If you left click and hold on your playhead, by the way, that'll scrub for you. That's what I'm doing. I'm scrubbing. Look at that dance. Go on. Yeah, man. It's like fast editing. My son does that. But it just sits there, right? Like this is a full screen image. I haven't done anything with the video. Now, if I were to left click on this in my timeline, and then in the upper left, actually double left click in Filmora is what opens it up. You'll see the options tabs. Whenever you double left click on anything in the upper left, you get like the advanced features for that track and that piece of footage. I'm going to go to the animations tab. Can you see in the upper left? And then click on the customize. This is where we can add keyframes. All right. I'm going to, where this playhead is right now, wherever that playhead is, if I click that, can you see right up here, this add keyframe? If you look right in the timeline, see how it added that green dot? That's a keyframe. Now, what can get confusing is like, well, what did it do, Daniel? It didn't do anything. You put a keyframe there, but it seems like nothing happened. It just seems like you just put a keyframe there and nothing changed. Well, that's because I didn't change anything. I didn't tell it anything. The only thing it knows right now is there's a piece of footage in my timeline that it's full screen. And you're telling it, hey, remember at this point right here where the playhead is, that this piece of footage is a piece of footage that's full screen. That's all we know. Now, I didn't tell it. Now, no matter where I put this keyframe, if I slide it, it doesn't change anything. Because if this were like the navigation reference I said before, remember, it's like go to the end of the street, take a right, go up to the stop sign, take a left. Imagine if I didn't give you any of the information and I just said, you're at the stop sign. And I didn't tell you how you got to the stop sign, and I didn't tell you what to do next. You're just at the stop sign. And I just tell you, you're in this town at this stop sign. That's kind of what like a keyframe is doing here by itself. It's just saying one piece of information right here where I put it, wherever I slide that around, and left clicking and holding it. Put my mouse on it, left click, hold. I can move that keyframe around. I'm moving it around, but I'm still not telling it anything about what happens before or what happens after. So it only knows, you know, at this point, he's full frame. He hasn't told us anything different before the keyframe or anything different after the keyframe. So we can't make the software won't do anything. I haven't given it any additional instructions, okay? Because it was just as it is, and I added a keyframe. Does that make sense? Just adding a keyframe. So the way I would make something happen, and I should say this, I think I can right click on these now and I can either edit the keyframe or delete the keyframe or clear all keyframes. That gives me all those options. Let me get a little bit bigger here so you can see it. So there's that keyframe. A lot of times I'll do things like I want to change the location of this. Like, let's say I might put something, see how like when you're watching my live stream right now, let me try this. I could do things like I could bring myself down into the corner, see how I'm pictured and pictured. Maybe at this point in my footage, I would like to also do a picture-in-picture thing in my video edit. So I say, okay, all of this beginning part, I want it to stay full screen. And right here is where I want it to get smaller. I want to shrink it. So I have to put an anchor point. I have to say, if I don't put this keyframe here, it doesn't know to keep this entire beginning full frame. So I go, keep it full frame to here. That's what that keyframe is saying. Now let me move a little bit forward, and I don't even have to add a keyframe. All I have to do is double left click on the footage in my timeline. And can you see it creates that racetrack around it in the upper preview window? Let me hover in the upper right. Let me turn off my, my branding might be in the way here. Let me turn that off. In the upper right, I'm going to hover and my mouse turns into an arrow and I can left click hold and I can now shrink this. This is left click and dragging. I can bring it down and go, I would like that to be a picture in picture. And I want it to go to there. So as you can see, if you look in the timeline, right where the playhead was, because it matters where the playhead was, it added that keyframe. And see that little green arrow in between? All that did was it said, well, we knew it was full frame here. And at the playhead point, Daniel moved and made another, he decided he wanted it to be smaller. So we're going to put, we added, the software automatically adds a keyframe there, or you could add one yourself. But what happens is the software fills in the distance in between. It says, well, if this was full screen and this keyframe is supposed to be like a picture in picture, let's animate and keyframe that motion where it automatically shrinks me and puts me down in the corner like that. See, it was playing full screen here. Private, no big deal. Boom, goes down. Nope. Now it's picture in picture. So that's all that did. And everything from here on will stay in that picture in picture. See how it's not moving? Because I haven't given it any new instructions from that last keyframe. So originally it knew it was full frame. And then I told it right here is where I wanted to change from full frame down to that picture in picture look. And now all it knows is from this point on, we haven't gotten any new instructions. So we'll stay at that picture in picture size. Now listen, some of you might be asking, well, why did you have to put that first dot, that first keyframe? Couldn't you have just marked and said, I want it to get smaller right here? Well, what happens is, watch if I delete. Let me right click on the first keyframe and delete it. What it'll do is now it has no reference point. It'll stay small the whole time because I never told it to stay bigger. See what I mean? It needed that keyframe, or otherwise now it's a single keyframe without any other instructions around it. It needed that other keyframe, and I can Control Z and bring that back. It needed that other keyframe to let it know stay full screen to here, keyframe, mark that point. Now do something different. From that point, now do something different. Go smaller down into the corner to that second keyframe. Okay, that's what we're trying to do. That's a real basic. Does that make sense? Give me, if that simple scenario makes sense, why we have two keyframes and how we did that makes sense. Give me a yes in the chat. If that was confusing, give me a no. Like, tell me that, no, I don't get it. Because I want to make sure that I'm not losing anyone around the way, because we're going to do some heavier duty stuff in here. I'll show you some more advanced stuff that you can do with this. But I want to make sure that you understand that what we're doing here, real simple. Just taking something and giving it basic instructions. I've got a lot of yes, I got a yup, yes, I got an awesome. I've got a yes, 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 even to me, says Megan. So that's awesome. So that's really simple, right? We're just basic instructions. We told it, we're telling that video what to do. Okay, let's pick it up from there and let me show you some other things that you can do. Because that was just a basic shrink. I just shrunk the size of where the footage was on screen by highlighting it, left clicking up in the preview window and resizing it. So that's a basic resize, 2 keyframes, go from big to down in the corner. Nice and simple. But we can do more with that. Let's say it's here. And let's say I want it, to do something else next. Let's say from here, I want it to go back to full screen. Well, here's where you have to be careful. This is with the same thing. Remember how we put that first keyframe to let this know, hey, stay big from the beginning right up to this point. Don't change anything. But at this point, let's lock in the full screen, and then we'll do the change and then fill in the gap in between. Let's say we're down here for a little bit and we're going, yeah, you're going to be talking. Maybe there's a video I'm reacting to. At this point, I want it to start to get big again. You have to add a keyframe right here. So use the add. And did you see what it did? I know it's putting an arrow there. Don't let that arrow confuse you. But all that's doing is it's saying, hey, stay small from here all the way to here. Stay small. Don't move. But at this point, we want to go back to big. So let me move the playhead forward to where I think it should be big again. I'm going to double left click on the footage in my timeline. You see how it does that racetrack around it with the dots? Now let's stretch that back out again. And let's see if we can get that back to full screen. Sometimes I have trouble snapping. I think that's it. Okay, so this is what it now does. It was full screen. It got to that first keyframe. It said, at this point, go from full down to the lower left corner. Now, because I added this third keyframe, it's saying, stay there, stay there. I've given you instructions, stay there to here. Now it's okay to get big again. Now it's okay to get full screen. See that? That's why there's 4 keyframes, to let it know it has the anchor points. Now, let me show you something. If I didn't tell it, see that third keyframe? I'll put the playhead right on it. That third keyframe right there, if I didn't put that one in there to let it know to stay small that whole time, let's right click and delete that keyframe. What it would have done is when I told it to get big, it would have assumed that it wanted me to go from the previous keyframe to here, which means the minute it got small, it would slowly start getting big again. Because I didn't put a keyframe in to tell it, no, stay small. I don't want you to go back to full screen yet. So that's why we have to put that 4th one. Otherwise, you see it'll just shrink down, boom, from full screen. And then it's like, oh, wait, it's slowly getting bigger again. I didn't want that. So that's why, and if I do Control Z, I can bring that other keyframe back. That's why we need that third keyframe to say, nope, stay there to here. Now get bigger again. And then if you want that to get to be faster, like the way I just randomly picked a spot. If I wanted that to go from small to big, go full screen. If I went, that was about the right speed, or I wanted to go slower, let me stretch the keyframe out. Let me push it back a little. And basically, I'm just pushing it back in time. I'm saying, no. Don't go to full screen quite so quickly. Do it a little slower. Let me move it back. And if I move it back, it'll just go a little bit slower. See how it goes more slowly to full screen? And if I went, no, that's too small. That's too slow. I want it to go really quick. I want it to go, boom, right back up. I can pull it back really close. So the amount of time between the picture-in-picture look down in the corner to full screen is now shorter, which means, wham, it'll pop right back up quick. Does that make sense? Are you with me right now? 4 keyframes right there, right? Full, down to picture-in-picture. Give me a yes if that makes sense. No if I've lost you. Went down to a small picture-in-picture, and then we held it there with that other keyframe saying, stay there, stay there. We're giving you instructions. And then it went back to the full screen. And the distance in between determines how long it'll stay there. So even if you we got yeses. So even if you put, yes, makes sense, Elizabeth says, RV Hobbs says, yep, Hobo says, yep, makes sense. Exploring Canada, yes, makes sense. Yes, we got a lot of yeses. Unveil, yes, great. Okay, so that's really it. The keyframes are just those pieces of information saying, hey, see what's going on right here? Either we're putting in a keyframe and I want you to remember what's happening here, or I'm about to make a change and I want you to add a keyframe here to represent that change in information. Maybe we're making the video on screen go smaller or bigger. Let me show you some other things you can do. Okay, I want to show you some other things. That all seems to make sense. Yes, perfect. So you're with me so far. Pretty simple stuff, right? We're just adding keyframes. They're just information. They're just telling us things we did on screen. We're like locking it in and telling Filmora, hey, remember this and do it again every time you get to this point of the edit at this moment in this timeline for this piece of video. Let me do this. So now let me come over and let's do something different. Now I went from, we said it was full screen at the beginning. I told it to say full screen. That first keyframe says right at this point, stay full screen, but then go to small. Stay down small because I added a third keyframe that says stay there, and then really quickly, blam, go back to full. Now, let's say I wanted to do another move. I wanted it to stay full for this much longer. I want it to stay just like this. Again, when I want it, if it's been full screen and I want it to stay here, I have to use the upper left, add a keyframe to let it know, stay full screen, right? I want you to stay right there. From this keyframe that says full screen to this keyframe, the last one I just put in, number 5, I'm telling it, don't do anything, stay right here. But now let's say I want to try something different. Maybe now I'm going to move forward a little bit, right? I always move the playhead forward a little bit and I can readjust it. Like I go, let me go a little bit forward. Let me double left click in my footage in my timeline to get that racetrack around my footage, and let me move my footage over. I want to slide myself out of the way, just over to here. All right. All I did, now do you see how it automatically added the keyframe? Because it said, hey, wait a minute, we were full screen, but you did something different right where the playhead is. So we're going to mark where the playhead is, what just happened. Make sure you have the playhead somewhere near where you want it, because that will drop that keyframe automatically based on the fact that you're giving it new information by moving the footage in the upper right. I just moved it so it said, okay, originally we had gone from big down to the small. You told us to stay. You've got a keyframe saying stay there. Then you said, Daniel said, go right back up to full screen. And then you left and you had another keyframe that said stay there to here. And then you did something different, Daniel. Fillmore saying, then you moved your footage to the right. So we're going to fill in the gap and we're going to slowly slide your footage to the right at that point. And then it's going to stay there, right? It's going to stay there at least for now because I haven't given it any new commands. No new instructions. So there are no new instructions yet. So that means it's just going to sit there and go. It's just going to sit there and wait. So for each action, you need new two keyheads, 2 keyframes. It depends on the action, Elizabeth. You don't always need 2, but you have to know where it's coming from. But look at the beginning of this footage. See how there's no keyframe at the very beginning? Because it was already full screen. So I didn't technically need a keyframe at the beginning to tell it that. It was already full screen, and I brought the playhead to here and added one. But you do need an anchor point. You can't tell, like when we were talking about navigation, you can't tell somebody to take a right unless you tell them where to take a right. You know what I mean? It's like, you can't just go, okay, go take a right. Like, well, where do I do it? Do I go to the end of the street and then take a right? Or do I go to the stop sign and take a right? That's what the first keyframe does. It says, all right, start here and then go to here. And every keyframe that you add is going to assume that we're starting from the previous keyframe or the previous beginning point. So if you're starting from the previous keyframe and you wanted it to stay like full screen for a little bit, you're going to have to add that extra keyframe in here to say, make sure you stay there, right? Because right here, right, here's the one, I went right back to full screen and I stayed there because I added an extra keyframe and then I shifted it off to the side. But if I took this keyframe right here, that was the one that told it to stay in place, and I delete that, we have that same issue. It went back to full screen, zoop, and now it's saying, well, way over on the right, I want you to be slid off, and I guess you want us to do it from the previous keyframe, which was full screen, so the minute it goes to full screen, it'll start slowly sliding. And I don't want that. I wanted it to stay in place. So that's why I had, and I'll do Control-Z to undo my last move, I put that other keyframe in to hold it there, to say, wait, don't go. I want you to stay full screen, stay, add the keyframe to go marker point. Now next thing, now the next move. So in a sense, you're right, Elizabeth, that was, the keyframe needs to anchor where the move is coming from. It'll always look at the previous keyframe. So the 2 ways I want you to understand that you can add a keyframe is by physically having your playhead somewhere in your timeline, and double left clicking and activating the footage or whatever it is. It could be footage, it could be an image in the upper right and doing a move. Did you see it add that keyframe? That will add a keyframe because Fillmore's going, wait a second, you're doing it. You want that footage to be somewhere else. You're giving us different information for this moment in time where the playhead is. So that's one way you can do it. And I'll do Control-Z to undo that move. That deleted that everything. It just stepped the whole thing back. Control+Z on your keyboard. Or you can physically add a keyframe by hitting the Add button. You see where I did it in the upper left, and then moving the footage to where you want, right? And then it'll do the same thing. It'll go, oh, I went off to the right, and then I shot up, up to the left. The easiest way, when I'm using Filmora, because it automatically adds the keyframe, if I just move the footage, it'll already put the keyframe in. So putting the keyframe, then moving the footage where I want, doesn't always make sense. It's an extra step you don't need to do. But that's basically it. Keyframe tells it what to do at that point in time, and then it'll move towards the next, and it won't do anything else unless you add another keyframe telling it to do something different. Let me see. Now, keyframing, let me get rid of that, what I just did. Keyframing doesn't just have to be sliding like where that piece is on screen. So I showed you we went from full screen down to smaller, so I shrunk it. I took me and I slid me off screen. I did this in last week's live stream where a lot of times I'll add like a graph or something on screen and I want myself to move over and have the graph or the information come in with me. This is a perfect opportunity to use your color blocks. And I do this all the time. I'll do up in the upper left sample color. I'll grab like a sample color and let's go with, I don't know. You tell me what color looks good. Orange? Orange. I'm going to bring orange down and I'm going to put orange right here. Now, I'm going to put orange right at the beginning. Let's put it like somewhere in here. Now, if my footage was just playing, I would be going along. You'd see me and you went, blam, Daniel put a big block of orange right in the middle of his screen. Well, I don't actually want that to be there. I tend to work backwards. I say this. What I would like is at this point where I'm slid over. Let me turn off this track. See where I'm slid over? I would like this orange footage to be like filling up that other part of the screen. Let me find where's the black at? Right about there. So maybe I put some information here. Maybe I even slide it over more. I want myself to still be in screen. So maybe I'm adding some text in here. So I can do this and go, that's where I want that. That's the placement. So I can sit there. I will go up to the animation tab, go to customize, and I'm going to add a keyframe. So if you look at the keyframe below, right where I'm slid over, right where that finally moves over, I want this bit of orange block to be there filling in the gap. Well, if I go backwards, if I scrub backwards, see how I'm sliding over, but the orange isn't moving? Let me go back to that previous keyframe. And if I turn off the orange track, you can see I'm full frame here. I actually want, at this keyframe, I've got the playhead lined up with the first keyframe. I want my orange to be off screen. So I'm actually going to build this backwards. I went with what I knew here. I went, let me get those lined up. That's where I want it. Now let me go backwards to where it starts. I work backwards a lot of times because it makes sense for me because I'm backwards. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to slide this over just out of frame. Let me keep it straight. And it's just out of frame. So now what I just did was I now have the orange track sliding in when I slide over. So this is a great way. Once it got to here, I could add things like text on top of it. So I could easily grab the titles track. I like default titles. It's my favorite. It's got no anything attached to it. No motion. I could, if I can grab it, let me bring down default title. And I'll put a default title track here. Let me just have it say something. Let's just say stuff. There's some weird, oddly capitalized stuff. And let me move that up here. I'm going to put it up in the orange. Maybe there was some things I was talking about here, right? Maybe I start adding text. And this is cool. I can do stuff like, oh, let me have this word stuff show up. Maybe I can even have it, if I click on the title, this is the text animation, I can have it type out. Let me hit the typing one. So it gets to there and it's like, oh, the orange comes in and oh, and then it types stuff. Kind of simple. Nothing. Whoops. I want that. I don't want to move that. Wow, I'm making a mess. I just want to shrink this. Let me make it the same length. That'll speed up the thing. So now, does that make sense? Did I lose anybody there? I just added an orange block. I moved myself to the side, slid it over, and I added some text. It wasn't anything really fancy. It was just a simple maneuver that it's a cool way to do like a graphic if you wanted to bring some information in, like scores or anything. See how that slides in and then it says words. You can put text up there. Really, 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 really simple kind of stuff you're doing in there. Does that all make sense? Just a nice, simple slide. Just bringing in other elements, keyframing. I got several things keyframed on the in my timeline right here. I've got the video keyframe to move to the side, and then I took that orange block and I had it slide in. I keyframed that. Nice, simple. Then I can add text on top. Have I lost anybody yet? If everything makes sense so far, give me a yes in the chat. If I'm moving too fast and I lost you, give me a no and I can go back over some of these things. I'm going to try to follow your pace today. This is also a great time to thank the sponsors that we have here today who make this possible for us every single week.
This live stream is sponsored in part by StreamYard, live streaming made simple, and by Spreadshop, the #1 resource for all of your print-on-demand needs.
If you guys are interested in learning more about either StreamYard to start doing your own live streams that look just like this, or if you're interested in making merch, making your own kind of custom t-shirts, mugs, you name it, you can sell it. I got links down in the description below, and you can check that out whenever you have a chance. But does that all make sense? Let me just make sure, check the comments. I want to make sure I didn't lose anybody. Yes, it's all good. Yep. Yes. Elizabeth says yes. My friend Mike says hi. How you doing, Mike? Yep, you've made it easy. Okay, nice and simple, right? Nice and easy. Nice and easy, nothing too complicated. Yes, it makes sense. We're just using the keyframes to let the software know what we want to have happen with the different things in our tracks, right? Drop one in there. Tell it to move. Tell it to slide. Tell it to shift over. Tell it to shrink. But you can do more than that. You can do more than just shrinking. Let me show you some other stuff you can do. Because it's video, pretty much anything you do here, let me move forward. Like, let me move, let me do this. I'm going to go, let me add another, right after that ends. Did this slide back? Yeah, this slid. I didn't slide back. That's what I got I slid, oh, I'm sitting there. Let me slide all this back. I'm going to now slide this out. I'll add, at this point, I'm going to take this piece of orange and I'm going to go, I want you to be off screen at this point. And with the playhead still there, this is a nice, easy trick. This is where I want the orange to move. Whoops, I didn't lock it. My bad. See, and I have to tell it to stay there. Add a keyframe to tell it to stay out. Now let's move forward. Move the playhead forward, click on it in the upper left, and move it off screen. See, I almost broke my own rules. So now I have the, it slides in. I've got that keyframe there. I added a third one in that orange block, telling it stay out there, stay in the middle of the screen. To this point, now let's move out of the screen again. And it slides away. Now, if I put the playhead right where those dots are, I love doing this all the time. It's an easy way to synchronize motion. I've got this playhead lined up over this keyframe, right where it's telling it to stay there. I'm going to click on my footage below, and I'm going to add a keyframe there too. So I now have told my footage of myself, stay there to this point too. Hey, orange, once you come out, stay right there. And Daniel, once you slide over to the right, stay right there. Equal, look at where the playhead is. It tells those two keyframes right there. Now we're going to do something different. I slid the orange out of the way. So let's move the playhead over to the next keyframe. Let's click on myself, the footage of me, and let's bring that back over so it's locked into the center screen here. I think that's it right there. So now because I put the playhead there and I just moved it, it automatically fills in all the gaps. See how the orange moves out of the way? And my footage moves right along with it. And I don't have anything missing. And when the orange disappears, because I lined up those keyframes, now the orange is gone. We're back to full frame. The only thing that's weird is that piece of text that's hung up there. So I'm going to shrink that down. I probably would have wanted that piece of text to go away right when things started moving. So I'll just bring it back to that point. And now I have this neat little, oh, okay, it came out, it said things, text goes away, everything moves out of the way. And it's all just looking at anchor points, right? The text came out right when this was all full screen, right here. The text hung around this whole time that everything wasn't moving. I told everything to stay on screen, don't move. And then right here, I added keyframes, so I want to get rid of my text just before that, and then let everything move out of the way. Nice and simple way to create a cool little graphic where something pops on screen, some text comes in. Sometimes you might want to be giving information, or if you're a cooking channel and you're adding recipes and you want to list ingredients, or if you're talking about some piece of information or an image, maybe there's something you want to show, you can bring the image in, slide yourself over. You can do things like that and have things move. That keyframing can make things nice and simple, and it can make your footage look really more professional than it was looking, because there's no specific feature you go like click a button and it moves my video over, right? This is just easy ways to move things around and manipulate them using keyframing. This is great. Hey, Tech Unravel, I'm glad this is helpful. I hope this is helpful for everybody. I hope you're all following along with what we're doing here. I want to show you some other stuff you can do. Now, like I said, we're just moving. We were just sliding and shrinking and expanding, just using keyframes and letting Filmora fill in the gaps. Like I want it to be full frame here, and later on in the timeline, I want it to be smaller, and I'll put a keyframe there, and Filmora does all the motion in between. It does all the shrinking, expanding itself. And this is pretty much how most video editing softwares work. If you put in 2 keyframes and it's 2 different pieces of information, it'll bridge the gap between them. If one's full screen and the next keyframe is down in the corner, it'll do all the information in between. There's no figuring out how to get your footage to shrink. Just tell it big here, small here, fill in the gap, right? Nice and easy. But now let's go forward a little bit. Let me show you what else you can do. Now, I was talking about this last week too. Now, this is full screen, right? So everything's full screen. We wanted full screen for a while. Now we get over to here. Let me lock this in at full screen to this point, which means add another keyframe, right? Because if I don't add another keyframe, then everything from the last keyframe to here, it won't know that it's supposed to stay here full screen for that amount of time. So we add a keyframe. That's the only reason we added that, was to tell it, hey, you know how Daniel's full screen right now? He just slid back in, the orange went away. We want you to leave him there. So we had to add another keyframe to say, leave him there full screen to here. Now, again, as always, we can left click and drag and change that and go, I want him there longer. I'm listening to the words and I wanted it to be full screen actually to here. No problem. Left click, drag, move the keyframe, and it'll automatically adjust for that. But now let's say we wanted to do something different. Let's say we wanted to maybe spin this off, like do our own kind of crazy transition. Well, here's something cool you can do, because not only does keyframes remember the information for sliding and shrinking, but you can do things like you could take this footage and you know how this has like a little turn handle here? You can rotate it. I could rotate this like 270 degrees, right? And then I could shrink it. Let me grab the corner and see if I could shrink it. Make it smaller. Just keep shrinking it down. And then let's say I want to have it send off up in the upper right corner. Let's push that just out of screen. So all it knew was the previous keyframe, it was full screen, and now it's spun like 270 degrees and it's off to the right. It'll now do that. It's like your own built-in transition that you just designed. Watch this. Wham! Just threw it out. That went pretty quick. Let me slow it down. Slowing it down by left clicking and dragging, right? And moving that. So now it'll happen more slowly. And it just woof, sends you right off screen. So that's a nice, easy way to create your own kind of transition. You could have another piece of footage underneath that. And if you send this one off, then all of a sudden this other piece of footage underneath is there and you've kind of like tossed it out. You've tossed that top one out. Your own kind of made up transition. I have to say, welcome to Friezo, who's now a channel member. Go to my channel memberships tab and make sure you check out all the information there in the drop-down menu. It's all kinds of members-only content there. And there's a members-only Facebook group. Make sure you go to the Facebook group and ask to get in and drop your URL, your channel link, so that we know who we can reference it against YouTube. But welcome. Glad to have you with us. So that's all it is. See, custom kind of moving things around, right? Cool, right? That's kind of cool, isn't it? Nice, simple things that you can do, because again, keyframe isn't some special effect. It's just documenting information that you're telling it. So if you're telling it stay full screen, it says, okay, I'm going to put a mark there. I'll stay full screen. And then we go a little forward and go, well, now I want you to spin it off. If you tell it I'm spinning that footage off screen, all that Filmora or whatever software you're using knows is, well, from the last one, it's supposed to be full screen. And at this next keyframe, it's supposed to be up and twisted off to the right. So we need to fill in that motion. That's what the keyframes do. It automatically fills in everything in between and says, oh, okay, spin, throw it up to the right, because that's where it needs to end. And it does all the stuff in between, kind of like a navigation. Tells you which road to drive until the next point. So nice and easy, and it throws it off. But you can also do things like, let me see if I can get rid of some of this. Let me get rid of that keyframe. I got to move some of that motion out of here. Delete keyframe. You can also do things like change like the skew. Like I spun that, but you could also here, let me go forward a little more so it happens a little more slowly. You could do things like skew it. Like see how I can like squash this in? So you could make your own kind of transition where something went from full screen squashed down to nothing, right? Watch this. Now it'll just go whoop and close up. Or you could do the opposite, right? You could do that's just a nice motion. It said, I told it stay full screen. And at the next keyframe, I want it all squashed down. So it'll fill in that blank and it'll squash it down. Because here, all I did was I clicked on that. Let me undo that again so you can see what I did. I just left clicked. This activates up here. if I left click and hold on the side, you can squash that in. I'm using that side marker right there. That adjusts the squash of the width. Okay. Now you can do the same thing with the top and bottom. You could grab the top keyframe. See, right? I mean, not keyframe, the top dot, that marker, bring it down to about the middle. I could grab the bottom one, bring it up. And now all I've done is I've told it to squash, like close down top from the top and bottom. And if I play it, that's what it'll do. It filled in all of it filled in everything in between automatically for me. Now that's a crush. Absolutely. Right? Simple motions. It's doing the work for me. I told it here it needs to be full screen. I put the playhead where I wanted. I changed the footage to what I wanted it to end up being. And that's what the keyframing does. The software automatically fills everything in between and says, oh, how do we go from full screen to squashed? Let's slowly make that happen, on screen from full to squash. We don't have to, nothing I have to program. The software does it for you. Okay. Nice and simple. Is everybody still with me so far? Did I lose anybody? Can Crush. That is Can Crush. Nice and simple kind of stuff. Hey, I appreciate that. Big fan. So nice, simple, easy. I haven't lost anybody yet. Let me show you a couple other things while we're here talking about keyframing, because there's some other things I do in conjunction with the keyframing that I don't think, especially for Filmora users. This is specifically for Filmora users in the group. There are sometimes I see people get frustrated with some of the limitations of the software that I sort of automatically do in my head, and I don't share it. People go like, how did you do that? Simple and powerful. Awesome. With you. Amazing. Awesome. Yes, says RV Hobos. Good to go. CC Tep. All right, perfect. There are some things that the software seems like it doesn't do that you can do. And I want to show you a couple of things. And it has to do with overlays. A lot of guys you will see, a lot of times you'll see me do tutorials because that's kind of the space I live in. And I'll use tutorial elements where I'll circle things and highlight things. And I was talking to Iggy this morning in our group. He uses the same way I highlight. This is how he highlights, using the color blocks and making them transparent. I've done that all the time. And now Iggy does it too. It's a really cool way to highlight things on your screen somewhere if you want to do information or images. Really cool way to do that. But a lot of times I use the Filmora features that have like arrows and circles. And a lot of people ask me, like, first thing, where are those, Daniel? Like, where did you get those from? So I'll show you, first of all, where those are for anyone who doesn't know who's a Filmora user. If you want to add like a circle or something, let me see. Let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of this keyframe. Okay, so I'm full screen. If I go up to the Elements tab in the upper left, and they've moved things around so much now, I tend to use the search bar. They have a whole pack of arrows and things that are called the tutorial elements. So if you just type in tutorial, you'll get hit with all of these moving arrows and circles that I use all the time. I think they're really cool to point things out. But they have some limitations. Here's one that's like, this is like, it almost looks like a magnifying glass. It's a dot and a circle. Let me bring that down. Let me show you what that does. On screen, you can see it now does like a dot and a circle, right? So maybe there was a word. Now, the way you would use this, we go like, well, what does that do? Let me give you an example. I'm going to move that up one track, and right below it, I'm going to add some text. Let me do the default title again, because that's always my favorite. There's nothing added. I don't have to delete any motion. Let me say that I was trying to point something out. Like, okay, that dude is Daniel. I wrote Daniel. Let me make sure I lock you the track so I don't move anything accident. Whoops. Let me not turn them off. Let me just lock them. Okay. So now, whoop, I moved the wrong one. Lock the wrong one. That one. Move Daniel. Now I'll move Daniel down here. And let's say that says Daniel. Let me do it in a better font. I hate Roboto. Let me do impact. Okay. So impact font. Let's make it a little bigger. Let's see, a little bit bigger. All right, so now it says Daniel. And then I'm using that like, oh, okay, well, what's this, right? There's Daniel. And I have this thing come in, and it's like this dot. I can click on screen, and I can move that around. You can rotate it, just like you can footage or images. You can resize it, like, oh, it's a little too big. Let me resize it. Maybe I'm trying to make a joke and go, hey, that's Daniel. That's him right there. That's that guy. Let me move it around. Let me expand it. I want the dot, and I want that to be right on my fat face. So then it's like, oh, here's Daniel. Boom, there he is. Okay. It's pinned at the very top. So, but what happens at the end of these effects? Do you see how it just went away? Like when this ends, it's like, oh, that's really cool. The thing came in, but then it just disappears, right? It's like, well, wouldn't that be cool? Like one of those things, like I say all the time, like, oh, it kind of like expanded and drew the circle. Wouldn't it be cool if it shrunk back down? How come they don't have an option for it to shrink back down? Well, this is one of those areas you want to learn how to edit, learn technique. Learning simple things in the software can make that happen. So that was a piece that went up, a little dot came in and made a circle. And now I say to myself, well, that was cool, but it just disappeared. I would like it to shrink back down and disappear. How would I do that? Let me show you how. What I'm going to do, let me go full screen so you can see me again. Not me. You can see the footage. Let me shrink it down. I'm going to grab that exact same thing. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to copy it. All right. I'm going to copy it. Now I'm going to just move the playhead forward just a little bit more here. And just so you can see, and I'm going to select the top track. See how it turns darker? See how I'm selecting tracks? Make sure you select the track because I'm about to paste. And whenever you paste, it will paste into the track that's selected. So if I have the track below it selected and I hit paste, clicking anywhere out in the open and clicking paste, it puts it into that track. I actually want it in the top track, and it'll always paste where the playhead is based on which track is selected. I will put this in here, and I will now paste that exact same thing. You go, well, what the heck does that do, Daniel? Now you got two of them. You got one, and then it does it again. Well, watch this. I'm going to take this one right here, okay? And I'm going to go over to the speed. And on the speed, right here, you do it a couple different ways, but here's one you can do it. I'm going to reverse it. That says reverse at the bottom. And all that does
be the thing you
is
want to push them
it'll
for.
have to, I'm going to have to probably, sometimes they get, with reverse, it uses up a little bit of processing. So I'll probably have to, let me just quickly render a little bit of this so that you can, so that it doesn't get janky. But all I basically did right there is I'm saying, hey, you know how that thing came open and opened up? I put that back in there, but I said, do it in reverse. Right? So now I'm going to have the opposite. Now I'm going to have it being big and it's going to shrink down. All I did was add a second one. But watch. Now, if we just put them together, well, I have to quickly render that so that it goes smooth. What you'll see is I had one that was, it went from opening up on my face. I copied it, so it's already got the same location. It's still hanging there. And now at the end of this, it'll shrink back down because I reversed it. That's all I did was reverse it. Now, that's the reason I copied this and pasted it, not because I couldn't have brought another one down, but I already had this one set saying it needs to be right here, you know, with the dot towards the Daniel. So copying this makes an exact copy with all that other information already included. So that's why I copied it and pasted it here and I reversed it. Now I could do a couple of things. I don't want it to hang this long. I just wanted it to shrink. Let me go to right where it starts shrinking, right there. And let me slice that. Right about there. Let me slice it and let me get rid of that whole part where it's staying there. I don't need that. I just wanted the part where it's shrinking back down. So I can just do that. And once it's rendered, should shrink back down.
Whatever might be the thing you want to put.
Oh, got rid of the wrong part. Come on now.
Relevant performance.
There we go. Get that out of the way. You gonna be my friend?
Might be the thing you
Of course, it doesn't want to do it now because it's cutting it in half. Hold on one second. So what I can do is, if it's not going to let me do it that way, I can speed it up. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to increase the speed. Let me go 8x. So now it's just a lot faster. Filmora 11 has done some different changes. Some of these I'm still getting used to.
Whatever might be the thing
Zoom, and it goes away. So now instead of it popping open and hanging there, it shrinks down and gets out of the way. If that was too fast, I could chop the beginning of this, because once that gets full screen, this does let me cut here as far as I remember. Let me slice just that. Let me get rid of that section. And now it should hang there as well. Give me 1 second. So now I've got it opening up, and I chopped it. We've got the reverse now kicked in, but you can't tell that it's moved to a different piece. Then it shrinks back down. So simple things. I'm always playing around with that. How to get something to open, how to get something to close. Real simple ways to do things like that, so that you can take some of those effects that you go, oh, I like those overlays, but I wish it did one other thing. Well, just make it do that. Make it do that. And a lot of times you can keyframe some of these things. One of the biggest problems I've seen people have is with text. Like, I wish I could keyframe some of the text. You can totally keyframe the text. Let me show you one other trick here with keyframing. Let's say we have, let me get rid of, it said Daniel. Okay. Right now, if you double left click on text and you go up to the animation tab, Let's see if they fix it. I haven't tried it in 11. Let me see what happens. I'm going to try to add a keyframe right here. And let me see if it'll let me move the text. Let me add one right when it gets full screen, right there. Let me go there. Let me add another keyframe. These are two keyframes, but I haven't given it any other information. Let me go back to the first keyframe and click on this and slide this off screen and see if this will do it. I don't know if 11 has changed it. If it has, that's cool. We've learned something new. Up to this point, Filmora was not allowing us to use full keyframing with the text. Let's see if it did it.
You have the very first comment.
And it's just one of the issues they've had. It doesn't let us apply the keyframing to the text. So, but here's a way around that for Filmora users. Turn off all the other tracks. Make them invisible. All right. If I make everything else invisible, the only thing I have on screen is my text track right now. All right. Underneath the preview window, see there's a little camera icon. Take a snapshot. When you take a snapshot, and let me move somewhere else. Let me move over here. I'm going to click on the snapshot in the upper left, and you can be able to see this. It's a snapshot of that text, and it's a transparent background PNG snapshot of that text. So effectively, it's that text, but instead of being a text layer, it's an image layer. I've turned it into an image. So let me delete the text, okay, and replace it with the image of the text. Have I lost you yet? Is everybody with me? Give me a yes if that made sense. I turned off all the other tracks. I turned them off because when I took the picture, I don't want me in the picture. I don't want the magnifying glass in the picture. I just want the text. Yes, if you understood what I just did. I just took a picture of the text in Filmora. So now I've got a PNG image of the text with a transparent black background. I know it looks black, but it's actually transparent. Because that's how Filmora does it. It doesn't, it leaves that wide open. Okay, makes sense. Yes, you understand. Oh, Ty's right there. Hey, Daniel, thanks for taking a quick glance at my channel last month. I applied one of your tips so far and took a playlist that was getting 200 views a day to over 1,000 views per day. Ty, nicely done. Nicely done, my friend. That stuff works. Told you that stuff works. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. So yes. Thank you again, Ty. Yes, that makes sense. Yes, so everyone got it. All I did here, took a picture of the text, pulled the text out and replaced the text with an image of the text. So now it's not a text layer, it's an image layer. Now this is a great thing about image layers. We can add keyframes to image layers. So here's that Daniel thing, right? So it's like, okay, let me turn on the other tracks again. I had to turn them off just to make sure they didn't end up in the snapshot. I just want a picture of the text. So now here we are, there's that Daniel, right? And then it's like, boom, and then it goes out and circles my face. Well, that's cool. I'd like Daniel to be there. In my head, I'm going, I'd like the word Daniel to be there, like right when the thing circles my face. So let me click on the image of the text track, right? Text image track. And now I'm going to add a keyframe. But before that, I'm going to scroll backwards. So that's right where I want it at the right time. Let me go back to the beginning. Let me double left click on that image of the text. And now the whole thing's highlighted, but because it's the whole frame, it took a picture of the whole frame. But as you can see, it's transparent. You can see right through it. You can see Daniel. I'm going to grab that and I'm going to slide it off screen. Whoop, let me keep it lined up. Bam. Now what I just effectively did, I keyframe text. The snapshots that Filmora takes are very good. So when I play this forward, what you'll see is a keyframe text motion. Text came into frame,
and it's pinned at the very top.
And it looks just like text. You don't know the difference. You don't know that I took a snapshot and made a PNG layer that I can now add keyframing to. So if you are trying to do things with your text that Filmora doesn't natively do, that's the way to do it. And you can do all the things you can do that I've already done to my footage. So like right here, let me go full screen here so you can see. Like right here, let's say, I can add another keyframe here. Oops, let me double F click, come on, there we are. Add a keyframe, and then maybe let me lock the other layer so I don't accidentally move them. I have a tendency to do that. Let me squash the text. I will go up to the top because this text layer is actually an entire layer. I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to squash it down to nothing. So I could do things like make it, squash out of sight, which is kind of a cool trick. I like that in reverse sometimes, right? So Daniel comes in, boom, points at me, boom, the Daniel goes away. That's a good way to make text go away, or vice versa. A lot of times I will, let me get rid of that last keyframe. I will do the opposite thing where I'll Let me get rid of this one. I can get rid of all these other keyframes. Let me take this keyframe here, and I'm going to delete that first keyframe. And now the text is back in the middle because I deleted the part where I told it stay off screen. Now I could have easily done this over here at the beginning and said, I know, do a cool, I want the text to like pop up from nothing. So I go back, so I still have the text, the keyframe telling it at this point it should be full screen, but I went to the beginning and originally I had it off to the left. I put it over here. I got rid of that keyframe and changed that keyframe, and I squashed the text down and said, start from a squash and then have it expand upwards. Now watch what happens.
You have the very first comment, and it's pinned at
there
the
goes
very
my
top.
text. And all of the same things apply. You can add rotation. You can squash it in, out, expand it. All those things you can now keyframe with your text because you've turned the text into an image. And once it's an image, that's one of the good things that Filmora does is it does take if you turn all the other tracks off, it will take a snapshot with a transparent background, meaning when you bring that text back in as an image, it won't have a black background. Still to this day, I don't know. I haven't tried the new 11 yet. I don't think it still doesn't export with transparency for video, but when it's taking snapshots, it'll do that inside. So real easy ways where you can start taking simple things, default title text that has no animation to it. Take a snapshot, write the words, take a snapshot of it, throw the text out, grab the image, bring it down. Now start playing with it. Squash it, turn it, make it spin, make it scroll across the bottom, stop, hang out for a minute, and then shoot off screen again. Whatever you want it to do, it can do. You can have it spin, tumble, squash, hop. You could have that text hop through your screen if you wanted to, right? That'd be a nice, easy way to people, if you said like, oh, I want this text to hop, you could do it to the beat. You could take a music track that had the beat detection on it and say, okay, I want it to be here. And let's say the next beat, I would go to each beat and I go, let's say that's a beat. I'm going to add a keyframe and I want every place there's a beat, I'm just going to add a keyframe. And let's say I was sitting here going, let's say this was music. And I'm going to say, okay, there's the beats. I wanted every beat, I wanted to land on the ground. So I went ahead and put, markers, pretend there's no music here, but where the beats would be, like where the boom, boom of the music would be. And it's like, okay, but I want the text to kind of hop up and do something in between. Okay. Well, it's like, okay, well then let's put the playhead in between and let's grab that text. And let's have it do something. Let me spin it off. Let me do a little spin, twist it, have it hop up here. And now what it'll do, and then it lands again. And let me have it. I go in between the next two beats. Let's go somewhere in between the next two beats. Double left click. This time, maybe I want to lean it off to the right. Let's spin it off to the right. Have it go up to there, right? Nothing special. I just put those, I told it stay in place on the beats and then I'll fill in the gaps in between, have it go higher. So it's like, okay, there's Daniel, and then boom, bounces up, lands on a beat, boom, bounces back up again. And you can add more keyframes. Like you could go right here. I could say, oh, it's going up here and I want it to actually hang up there for a minute, like that one there. I could actually say, okay, can we get that to hang one more for like a little more hang time on that? I could actually take that and bring it back up and go hang there for a little bit. Let me go a little hang time.
And it's pinned at the very
and then
top.
It comes back down. So any of those things you can create. You can spin things. You can make them jump around. You can make things move to the music. You could even you can make things pulsate. Like if you wanted to make your video kind of like pulsate to the music, you could, every time the beat hit, you could zoom in a little bit. You could you just pull the footage a little closer. It's just easy ways to play around with very simple keyframing, just giving it different information and saying, hey, at this point, I would like this one little change to happen, and it'll remember it. So simple keyframing, using that kind of stuff to make your footage look different, controlling how you want things to slide and move, creating your own interactive, moving graphic text. And I do these in layers. I'll add things. All the time I'll build things where some moving part is just some whatever piece of text that I took a snapshot of and had it move in and slide into place. And then I had like a little bar or something that I made. Like you've seen Filmora has all these little, like in their lower thirds, they have a lot of little like bars and things that move, but you can do that. Like a real simple thing that I do a lot. Let me show you a simple one. Let me get rid of some of the, somewhere back here. I'll do this. Like a lot of times I want to make my own kind of lower third of some kind. So watch this on this one right here. Let me show you a real simple trick. Let me grab a sample color. I love sample colors because they're so great in the upper left. Let's go with, I don't know, what kind of matches my set here? I don't know, maybe an orange or I don't know, maybe this maybe this color, coral. Coral. All right, there's a color block. It's just a color block, and right now it's taking up my whole screen because I brought that into my project, and I haven't told it anything. So let's start by saying, wait a minute, I want this color block to be a lot smaller. It's too big. You see the minute I start doing that, it adds a keyframe, even though I'm at the beginning. You see that little green keyframe? Because the minute I told it to do anything other than it was originally doing, it'll put a keyframe in. So I'm going to say, I want to add my own lower third here. Let me put this lower third, something like, I don't know, let's start there. I don't know what it's going to be yet. I put a block, and I'm going to say that's my color. And then I'm going to add some titles. I'm going to get the default title. I'm going to bring that down on top. I got a track locked here. Let me unlock it. And I want this to say, you know, whatever. Let me go to the, let me go back to the text window, and I want to say my lower third. I can't spell today. My lower third. Okay. So let me grab this text. Now, again, if I wanted to do my own animated lower third, all I'd have to do is turn off all the background tracks so you can't see them. All right. Take a snapshot. Right. I'm taking a snapshot of my lower third. Okay. Now it's right up here. It puts it right up in your window up here after you've done that. Let me delete the text track because I don't need it anymore. Let me replace it with the image track. Now we can turn everything back on. Now that we have everything back on, I would like, let me click on my lower third and let me shrink that because it's too big. I don't want it. I need it to be smaller. Let me get a little smaller. Something like that. I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard to do slight, hear me clicking? I can do slight modifications. That's a nice way. If you can't get it just right by using your mouse, don't be afraid to use your keys. Those little arrow keys, they do nice little adjustments. Perfect. Something like that, right? So now I've got my lower third. Nothing special. I don't even love this. I go, let me do something different. I think first off, I would think the color behind it, I'd like to see through that a little bit. So let me left click on that. Let me go up to the color. And I think it's under the tone. Where is the set? No, it's under image. Compositing. I'm going to go to the compositing and I'm going to dial it back. That's where I can make this more translucent. Oh, it's not going to do it now? Is that what it is? Well, it usually does. Filmora is deciding at Filmora 11. We found another glitch, folks. The compositing doesn't work on Filmora 11. It's still in beta, even though people think it's not. It's still in beta. They haven't done official release yet. So normally you could change the compositing. They have an issue with it. Clearly, I will have to tell them, Filmora, you still got a glitch. So, but what you can do is put that there. But let's say I want that to pop out and say my lower third right here. So let me click on each one of these and go animation. I'm at the keyframe under customize. Let me add a keyframe. And on the track below, select that one, add a keyframe. So all I'm telling it, wow, look at, I added a keyframe to see what it did. Found another problem with Filmora. That was weird. Add a keyframe. Ow, and it shrinks it. It shouldn't do that. Filmora, we found another problem with you. That was crazy. Let me lock this up. Let me lock this other track. As always, there's always something new we learn. Filmora still has some issues. Adding a keyframe changed the perspective. It shouldn't have done that, but Filmora's got issues today. We're noticing them all. All right, so now all I did was add a keyframe and said, at this point, I want that color to be that size. I'm going to also add a keyframe to the image of my text, okay? So I didn't change it. I haven't told it anything else. You know, slightly different. But anyway, I'm going to start here. I'm going to say, let me click on this lower track, and I actually want this to go from nothing. Let me shrink it to nothing, kind of like there. And then we take the words, and I want to do the same. I want to shrink those right off screen, like that. Now I just kind of created an interesting little kind of custom lower third here that kind of pops out and does what I want it to do. Now I could have done anything with that. I could have decided I actually want a different motion on this one. I would rather have this text, maybe whatever. Maybe I wanted it to go, from the bottom up and pop into place. So you could do multiple things moving in different directions, right? Coming together. But that's all just taking them as elements, moving them around, wrestling through Filmora 11's clear problems. And that's what it is. But it could be, if you're using, I don't care what you're using, Movavi or DaVinci or if you're using a Premiere Pro, all of these have very similar things. You're just taking these pieces and moving them and using keyframes to let the software know, do this at this point, and at this point, move it to here and fill in the blanks in between. Does that all make sense? Did that help? Did that help clarify how to use these tools? If you have any questions on that, let me know in the comments below on the replay for this, and I'll glad to go in and talk to talk more about these things and do specific use cases. I'll definitely make a regular video on some of this stuff. Sometimes the streams are long, and it's nice to have just a quick, 4 or 5 minute video that you can watch and have it all in front of you really quickly. So I'll definitely do that. I hope that was helpful. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I want to thank you guys for the nice comments in the super chats. And again, any questions, hit me up down below. Thanks again to our sponsors, StreamYard and Spreadshop, and I'll see you guys all again soon.